Welcome to the King Street Cinema podcast, the movie podcast brought to you by Ipswich's very own King Street Cinema. We've got 2 episodes coming your way this November, starting with this, The Killer Director's Special, where we will be focusing on Martin Scorsese, director of the new movie Killers of the Flower Moon. That'll be showing at the cinema this month, which is basically going to talk about his career. None of us have actually seen the movie yet. We're waiting to see it on the big screen at King Street. One I'm really looking forward to. I'll be joined by James from King Street, who's a massive fan like myself of Martin Scorsese, and we'll also be discussing the career of another director, David Fincher, whose new movie The Killer will be released later on in the month. A director who kind of accidentally I've followed the career of since his first movie in 1992, Alien 3. We'll be chatting about a few other movie related things as well as some other things coming up at King Street. Part 2 of this month's podcast will feature Dan, also from King Street. We'll be discussing 2 sci-fi movies that will be shown, 2 older movies that will be shown at the cinema later on in the month. That's Alien and 2001. 2 movies also directed by iconic directors. That, of course, is Ridley Scott and Stanley Kubrick. So look forward to that. Keep an eye on the socials for that as well, and obviously keep an eye on King Street's Facebook page and Instagram page for other stuff that's coming up. Often we'll do the podcast at the beginning of the month, and then other films are going to be shown, so do keep an eye on that. You can't rely just on us. Okay, so we're going to play now the trailer for that new Scorsese movie, and then I'll be joined by James, where we discuss that great director's career.
It's real complicated. Sometimes you got to do one thing even though you mean to do another thing. But I'm not in any kind of trouble at all. None at all.
Killers of the Flower Moon is the best movie of the year.
My wife likes a nice thing, so not as much as you do. You're picking a fight with the wrong person. You're gonna make trouble, make it big. You gotta tell me what you told them. All of it, what you tell them.
I told them all of it.
All of it?
Very nice. Oh my God.
Have you told all the truths?
James, thanks for joining me.
Hi.
Neither of us have seen that yet.
No.
But we're going to say we're both Scorsese fans, yeah?
Yeah.
So we're going to just talk about Scorsese for a bit.
Yeah, why not? It's a good idea.
Yeah. You've shown quite a few of his films, even recently at King Street. The documentary Last Waltz, earlier on in the year.
Yes, indeed. That was great. Wasn't it?
Raging Bull.
Raging Bull, yes.
Yeah, and probably many more. But
those are the only 2 that are coming to mind right at the moment, but we probably have put on others.
And generally, as his films come out, they're the ones you've been shown, because you did show The Irishman, even though that was made sort of for Netflix.
Yeah,
much like the Fincher one, it's Netflix, but it's got a selected cinema
that's right.
release, which I'm actually really annoyed I didn't see at the cinema. I wimped out and was like, oh, it's really long.
Yeah.
I'll watch it at home in parts. And then I put it on and just watched it all the way through because I enjoyed it that much.
Right.
So I might as well have seen it at the cinema, and I'm regretting.
I think I watched it in 2 bits, I think. Yeah.
But I bet you could have sat through it at the cinema.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Certainly. But yeah, I didn't catch it at the cinema.
Yeah. So I'll ask you the 2 questions. Favourite Scorsese film and the first one you remembered, what I'm seeing.
Oh, great questions.
Yeah.
Obviously.
Obvious, good question.
No, obviously great question.
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, best one, difficult. Generally say Raging Bull is generally what I say as my favourite Scorsese. Well, if I'm really just put on the spot and have to make a decision right now, that's the one it's funny because the 2 that we just mentioned are up there as some of my favourites. Because Last Waltz I generally won't put in the same category necessarily because it's a documentary, a concert film rather than a feature, piece of fiction. So Raging Bull generally for that. Though I do also love After Hours as just for personally on a more, or not as necessarily like a wow cinematic masterpiece, but just on a personal love the story.
That's a bit of a fan favourite.
Yeah, sort of thing. But more recently, just thinking, because people think, oh, it's all the classics, not some of the more recent ones. Silence, which came out in 2016, I absolutely love, and that's up there, definitely in probably my top 5 Scorsese films.
Yeah.
So I always recommend that to people who haven't, who like Scorsese but maybe didn't catch that one, because I didn't catch more it's a lesser known one, but fantastic. Absolutely love that film. But yeah, Raging Bull first, generally first one. But now the first film I ever saw that I definitely could say is probably Taxi Driver. I couldn't say for certain, but if that's not the first one I ever saw, it was definitely like second, or if it wasn't the first. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I generally always thought the first one I saw was either Taxi Driver or Raging Bull. But I think it was probably King of Comedy, which is another one you showed quite recently.
Oh God, how did I forget that? Yeah, of course.
As a kid, and still am a massive Jerry Lewis fan. And I think it was on sort of late night TV when I was really young.
Yeah.
And I'd have videoed it or maybe even sat up and watched it. And it was because of that. Now, it's always reminded me of Taxi Driver because of the way it's filmed, for a start, and the Robert De Niro link.
Yeah.
But I reckon I saw King Comedy first, and that's what made me watch Taxi Driver, which I would not have been old enough to see.
No, I mean, I definitely didn't see King of Comedy before I saw Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
But I knew of King of Comedy for years before I saw it, because it's one of those films that lots of people I knew growing up talked about. Like older, like family friends and stuff would talk about it. Say it was, just a hilarious film and you should see it. But I didn't see it until I'd already seen a good handful of his films.
Yeah.
Like many of his films before I finally watched that one. But yeah, that's great, isn't it? That's fantastic. I love it.
It's one of those, it's underrated, but it's sort of starting to get the recognition now.
Like I say, that's odd that it's. I'm from what I hear, yes, it was underrated, certainly. But like I say, when I was a kid, I knew people, grown-ups who talked about it fondly.
Yes.
So it was clear that it was a film that there were certain people. I guess big Scorsese fans probably, really just thought it was brilliant. But yeah, it didn't do. Commercially, I don't think it did too well when it came out.
I mean, but he had, growing up, we're both like about 40, we'll say, aren't we? Early 40s.
We are in our early 40s.
Early 40s. So, like me, you must be able to remember. I remember clearly Goodfellas coming out.
Yeah, sure.
I remember Cape Fear.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. I saw Cape Fear. I saw pretty young as well. Probably only about 3 or 4 years after that came out. So I would have still been like, maybe 12, 13, something like that when I saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, when you think we were that age, and he was almost like midway through his career then. He started his first film, Who's That Knocking at My Door, was late 60s?
67, I think.
Yeah. Which is sort of remembered more now because it was him.
Yeah.
But then it wasn't long after that. He done, was it Boxcar
Bertha, which was a movie. That was a director for hire type.
Yeah.
So, well, it's a weird one. It's one of them. Okay, so that's a Roger Corman film production. If people don't know Roger Corman, who's still alive today, I think he's nearly 100 years old. It's amazing. I don't think he involved necessarily in filmmaking anymore, but he produced and directed loads of films for the 50s and 60s, 70s and into the 80s of just low budget B movies in Hollywood. So he's kind of like the B movie guy of Hollywood. And a lot of directors who became famous later on got their first film made for Corman, and Scorsese was one of them.
Yeah, was it Joe Dante?
Yeah, certainly.
And James Cameron. Piranha.
And he earlier
set design.
But Francis Ford Coppola earlier in the 60s, in the early 60s.
So basically, probably Spielberg aside, the world's who you'd think of as the biggest directors all come through.
Biggest, American directors, yeah.
I'm a fan of Corman's movies. I mean, he would just have a set budget, low budget, get the films out. And it was just, it's like throwing paint against the wall. and there was some good ones come out.
Yeah.
But what he done for Hollywood was
absolutely for helping people start their careers and things. Yeah, it's fantastic, and it being a constant, I think, is what's important. That it's it's a sort of it's like the factory machine of Hollywood, but not the awful big studio side.
Yeah, it's much like in the 80s the Cannon films done, but it didn't crash and burn.
No,
quite so
amazing that
dramatically.
Corman, like I say, that for so many years, it had many different companies which did, go defunct, like World Cinema and stuff like that. Not World Cinema, what was it called? World Pictures,
Okay.
which brought out, again, similar to Cannon, brought out a lot of movies that are cult favourites, like Heathers and stuff like that.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, so companies that went under, but he was always still there. Had other projects going on and stuff, and so yeah. And I say to this day, he's still alive. But as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure he probably doesn't.
I've seen him
anything
pop
anymore.
up on some documentaries, but they're probably 5-10 years old now.
Yeah, maybe.
They're the interviews, but influential. But Scorsese, he gave him a start, really.
Yeah, in Hollywood.
Do you know if Scorsese worked for him before he directed? Yeah, he's like James Cameron worked.
I don't believe so. No. I think it was just sort of. I mean, I don't know the story properly because learning about getting full on into history of people is not really my thing.
Nah.
But he's a New York guy, Scorsese, and I'm pretty sure that the idea was to get a feel for Hollywood.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what would have happened, I'm sure.
Yeah. So we don't go too much into the history because people can Google that.
Yeah,
It's more like
absolutely.
our thoughts and
And
why.
I mean,
people should watch his films.
after Boxcar Bertha, which I'm sure he's never spoken too highly about it. I think he was not too happy with the final product. But after that, he goes back to New York and makes Mean Streets, which is really in a lot of ways the beginning of what people know of when they think of Scorsese.
Yeah.
It's got the two big names, which Harvey Keitel, who he had worked with before in his first film, Who's That Knocking on My Door? But of course, here we now have De Niro for the first time.
Yeah.
And so the partnership begins ultimately with Mean Streets.
And it's important to remember that De Niro wasn't De Niro, so to speak. Then he wasn't.
No, it wasn't the name. No,
Yeah.
I mean he'd worked probably 10 plus years on smaller. This is a low budget film as well, but on generally smaller roles. He started really with De Palma in a more of a leading role with a couple of movies in the late 60s. But Scorsese is definitely the guy you think of when you think of
definitely.
the partnership. But but De Palma was also another one that he had, but earlier on. But those films were nowhere near as successful or known.
Yeah, I mean he ended up doing so far. He's done 10 movies. They've done 10 movies together.
Yeah.
Including the new one, which
it's amazing they got back together because there was a big period, I think, from probably 95, whenever Casino came out. I'm pretty sure after that one there was a big long period of nothing working together as far as De Niro and Scorsese are concerned. Of course, Scorsese making movies mostly with the other guy who's in the new film that's come out, which is DiCaprio.
he's done, I believe, 6 with him.
Yeah, I mean,
6.
DiCaprio became his new De Niro, and I think he did say that he did years previous that he'd see DiCaprio as the new Robert De Niro.
I mean, I suppose for several reasons. I mean, obviously, De Niro getting older, there's a different type of leads, which maybe Scorsese wasn't so keen on working with. But also, you've got to think that period of the 90s, De Niro sort of got into the comedy side of things.
This is it.
Analyse this, analyse that.
And other things, Meet the Fockers.
And I think De Niro, he didn't want to get typecast, but I always saw that period. I've got to say, I'm not a big fan of those movies. I mean, Analyse This is very good. But I think he just didn't want to be that typecast, even though he kind of fell into it, because he was almost every role he played seemed to be spoofing his serious work.
Yeah, I suppose so. I guess you get to a point, I'm guessing, where he just figured, I've done a lot of intense work, I'm going to do something a little bit more light-hearted where I don't have to worry too much, and maybe make a little fun of myself.
He would probably. But whatever that period, he still does comedies like that, but he always seems to be enjoying himself.
Yeah, of course. I'm sure. I don't think it's going to be too much hard work, for him. So
and
you know,
they're very commercially successful movies. You know, these films were 12 certificates, PG-13 in America, opposed to the R-rated 18. You know, Scorsese movies. Because when you look at Scorsese's career, most of his films have been very adult oriented. I know he done Hugo.
We did Hugo. What was that? 2011. That's a great film. Love that film. I often forget about that one. But when I do remember,
you don't think of it as Scorsese.
Yeah, but when I do remember, I do say to people, if you haven't seen it, you really should see that film.
Yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, King of Comedy is a PG, but really isn't. If that makes sense.
He did a film called New York, New York, which is a musical in 1977, which completely flopped. Almost ended his career. On a personal level, because he had a fair few successes, and then that one was a huge big flop, and it did put him, I think, into a depression. But was saved by people coming to him with the Raging Bull, basically saying, you know, which again was a small movie. I think New York, New York was a big production, a lot of money spent for what it was. And I think Raging Bull probably was a lot less as far as the money was concerned.
This is the thing I find with a lot of filmmakers. They've and this is in more recent years you get a filmmaker who makes a small gem of a movie, and then they're given a huge budget. And like Marvel, for example, will offer. With the example I can think of is the guy who done the Fantastic Four movie, was Sony Marvel, who made a really cool little movie. And given a budget of God knows how much, and it just didn't work.
Right.
Scorsese can clearly work now with both. Yeah. But I think more New York, New York, it might be the choice of project opposed to the budget.
Yeah, I think was probably a few things with it really, but I just think he was expecting it to be, you know, thought of more fondly than it was.
Yeah.
And it was I think it just sort of crushed him. Yeah. And That was obviously a dark period there after that film, but he came back strong, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm sure that was because there were a lot of people around him that you know, knew that it was important. He had important work still to make, you know.
Yeah. I mean, this is just looking through. I've got Letterboxd up here, which isn't great because it doesn't put things in order. But when you look through his movies in recent years, I say recent, last sort of 20 years, you know, Wolf of Wall Street done really well,
massive. He's had his biggest successes commercially and critically, I'd say, pretty much more recently. Yeah,
because Shutter Island done really well as well, didn't it?
It did. I think it probably a bit smaller than sort of Wolf of Wall Street or Departed, which he won the Oscar for, which is 2006. Anyway, so we start with we start the new millennium with sort of like New York, New York, not New York, York. Gangs of New York, which is the beginning of a new sort of Scorsese, I'd say. Obviously, it's like new cast members. We've got different people. It's DiCaprio for the first time. And also his direction, his way of telling stories, I think, has changed as well. It's sort of more... It's weird to say now, obviously, because it's not modern, but it felt really like, oh, we've entered a new millennium here. We've entered a new kind of... a new thing. A new thing. You know, this is Scorsese 2.0 kind of thing. You know, which I at first was not happy with, and I'm not a massive fan of the film anyway. But I do appreciate it a lot more than I did when I first saw it when it first came out. Because I didn't really particularly like it. I thought it was very cartoonish, which it is in a way, but I didn't like that about it.
I've only seen it once, and to me, I like it, but it doesn't quite feel Scorsese.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I've never seen. I think it might be the next one he done with DiCaprio. Aviator.
Yeah, I like Aviator more. It's a better film. It's a biopic, you know, about a really interesting character, and DiCaprio is great in it. Yeah. So you know, it's got all those elements that work.
Yeah. I mean, do you think, looking at DiCaprio's career, the way it's gone, that if it wasn't for Scorsese, he may have gone the way of like other '90s sort of heartthrobs, to use a better term? Because when you look at DiCaprio, the movies he's made that have been really critically acclaimed, most of them, if not all of them, Scorsese. You know, after say Titanic, and because I still think of DiCaprio as that Titanic and Romeo and Juliet because of my age. I think.
Me too. Generally, for the most part, but I do know that he was very young when he made those movies. We've always got to remember that he wasn't like some guy in his late 20s, early 30s, which is like the time when you start to get the more serious roles for the most part. So he was still very young, and I'm sure he was. You can tell that he wanted it. Like he wanted it to be considered properly a real serious actor, and he took his craft very seriously.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that there weren't others that did, but he had the gift of being able to do the acting well, and also the determination and the drive to fight for the roles.
Yeah.
Which is, you really need both of those to even stand a chance of being successful.
Exactly. I mean, he's got the drive, but also the talent, because Scorsese.
Recognised.
I don't think Scorsese would have chosen him for a role because of his name.
He recognised that there was something. There was something in him that hadn't really been. I mean, got to remember as well. Another one. He really hits the scene. The reason why he becomes a heartthrob, like a big name, is because he does a film called What's Eating Gilbert Grape,
which is brilliant.
Which he gets an Oscar nomination for, and he's young. He's like 18, I think, when he made that. Yeah, really young. So that sort of like propels him, and he's got like a period of, just sort of, I don't know, getting stardom, I suppose, fame.
You look at the
all
directors
of this.
who he works with. I mean, Tarantino, the same, would pick him for his talent, not necessarily the name.
Well, of course.
And even recently, when I was watching Halloween type horror films, I put Critters 3 on because he's in it. I think that's his first movie or one of his first.
And I saw Critters 3 when it first came out on video.
He stands out in it.
I don't think I'd seen. At that point. Well, I think it was 92 when I saw it. He hadn't done anything else. So it is the first film that I ever saw DiCaprio in. And I agree that when I remember seeing it, thinking he's all right and he's pretty good. That kid.
And he'd done another early film, I forget the name of it, with De Niro.
He did, Boy's Life.
That's it,
which is, I think it's kind of a biopic, a sort of a memoir type film. I forget the writer's name.
I was going to say we got off track here. But
sorry.
Because he's in this film.
I wanted to bring. I was thinking of bringing this up anyway because the connection with De Niro. So he's gone sort of full circle almost in the career. Started off because Boy's Life, I think, is like his second movie. I think he'd done some stuff on television as well. He didn't just appear on. In a couple of did Critters 3 and then was working with De Niro, which I think wouldn't be impossible to happen. I mean, that kind of thing certainly does happen. But he had done a fair amount of television.
And he of course done. I think it might have been just after or just before Titanic, The Basketball Diaries.
Yeah,
which
is another biopic.
Yeah, which is very. Writer. I think it critically acclaimed more than done well.
Yeah,
but that's remembered fondly. And when you think, I think he could have. An actor I actually quite like, but he could have gone the Christian Slater route.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to put Slater down, but he's more talented.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I don't want to. Again, I will make the point of just why Scorsese, I think, always what worked with him and continued to work with him was that he could see the talent. And as much as I do love Christian Slater, and I don't in any way disbelieve that he didn't really try either to be to the level of DiCaprio, but he just didn't have it in him, I don't think.
No, he's also Christian Slater always, whatever role he's in, I always see him as that youngster. Whereas we've kind of watched DiCaprio age, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's not too far off our age. He's only probably about 5 or 6 years older than us.
Yeah. And he's kind of done it, and but I think as well for Scorsese's career, I can't talk. DiCaprio, whether it's intentional or not, more likely not, has helped his career because it's got the younger audience.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, this is kind of what I'm trying to make the point of, like with Gangs of New York, is almost like it's a new Scorsese. It's for a new generation, almost in a way. And I don't think his intention doing that to sort of, just get younger audiences to recognise him. But there certainly is a factor to all these things that, Scorsese's been very good and clever about this as far as filmmaking goes. He's sort of moved with the times and has been important with the moving of the times of filmmaking. And he's he's clearly a man that loves cinema. We all know, people know Scorsese. He's a man who doesn't just make films. He loves cinema. He loves the history of cinema. He's done documentaries and talks on it and stuff. So cinema and in general the history of it, and therefore also the future of it, is important to him. So he's been at the forefront of that.
Yes, I was supposed to say, do you think he's been at the forefront, or do you think he's very good at getting on what's popular?
Well,
I think a bit of
bit
both.
both, I'd say,
He's
yeah.
like the Madonna of directors.
yeah.
But saying that, with the Times, I'm going to bring it up before than you. What music video did he famously direct in the 80s? Bad, which is not a bad music video.
It's not a bad music video, no. It's good. It's got Wesley Snipes in it. I think one of his first roles ever.
Yeah.
So it's got that going for it.
Yeah, and that's iconic.
And Michael Jackson's in it as well.
Yeah. Did Scorsese have anything to do with Moonwalker?
No,
because Joe Pesci's in it, isn't it, mate?
I know. I would have thought.
I bet he was at the premiere.
I'm sure. When Michael Jackson, who I'm sure went to Scorsese and said, "Can you make my music video? Here's a load of money to make it, thank you." He would have said, "You know Joe Pesci, can I meet him please, because I want him to be in my movie." I'm sure that's what happened.
Yeah. It's got to be, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, I think from what I understand, Michael Jackson was very good at doing just like, getting in contact with people and saying, "I want them, can you get them?"
Yeah.
And people went, "Yes."
Yeah.
Pretty much. That's how it generally would go.
Yeah, because he was the biggest star in the world.
Exactly.
One of, if not the... Scorsese's one of the biggest directors of all time.
Mm-hmm.
One of.
Absolutely.
I can't believe, reading this when I was researching, that he'd only won the one Oscar.
For years, people would talk about when's he going to get one? When are they going to give him one?
Yeah.
Because he'd been nominated loads of times, and he'd obviously made films that American movies were iconic American Hollywood films.
And the movies were winning Oscars. He just wasn't getting the best.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So
and then he got it for Departed, which is a fine film. I have no problem with that movie. It is a remake of a better film, but still,
it's a well-made movie.
It is a very well-made movie, and it's got, other than De Niro, it's got loads of great people. You've got Jack Nicholson in it, and
it's Matt Damon.
Matt Damon's in it. Matt Damon playing probably his best role, I'd say, ever. I think it kind of almost made a role that I think
better than Dogma.
Better than Dogma. I think a role that's really made for him, pretending unconvincingly to be somebody else. That's the role for Matt Damon.
Is it better than Stuck on You? Do you remember Stuck on You?
I do, but I don't see it. But
look that one up, kids.
Oh no, Matt Damon has made some awful films, and I don't think anyone's going to, even himself, would not admit to that.
No, I mean he's done a lot of different. Yeah,
he has.
I'm not.
He's had a go as well, hasn't he? He's
right.
tried to, and he's won an Oscar as well, hasn't he?
Yeah, for that film Kevin Smith wrote for him. Yeah. I mean, Good Will Hunting.
Good Will Hunting, yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of what made those two more than just the actor, him and Ben Affleck.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were writing a screenplay, win an Oscar for you. This is the first thing they wrote. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's amazing, really.
Yeah.
It was
Kevin Smith didn't write it.
People were constantly like, someone else wrote this, right, guys?
That was my joke.
But they were saying that at the time. People were unconvinced that that there wasn't anyone else involved. I don't know. But I want to just go back to Scorsese as we were talking about. I know who, and talking about great actors that we love, because he saw the potential in him as well. Worked with Nick Cage on Bringing Out the Dead, which I love, by the way. Again, another similar to After Hours for me, a very sort of film that I personally recognise that it's not a classic, it's not a masterpiece, but I just like it. Yeah, just really, really like it. Yeah. And it's not just because Nick Cage is in it, but he is in it, and he's great in it, and he's doing loads of Cage faces in it. So it's great. If you haven't seen that one, check that one. That's about paramedics basically, and the crazy world that it is being a paramedic in New York.
Would you say that you've seen a bad or a movie you didn't like by Scorsese? Because I can't think of one
that I really didn't like. No, I don't think so.
No,
can't think of one that I really was like, no, that was a bad film.
No, I can't. And his movies are the sort of film that you watch, you're sort of almost blown away, but they're not really repeat viewing. But thanks to King Street, I've gone back over the last few years and seen, say, King of Comedy, Raging Bull.
Yeah.
I'm hoping for a reissue of Goodfellas soon, because I bought that on Blu-ray recently, and I'm like, I want to see it in the cinema. I was too young when it first came out.
Oh yeah.
And I've never seen Casino. And
Casino's good. I like Casino very much. I personally would put it on par with Goodfellas, because I'm not a massive Goodfellas. Like, when I just think of all of his films and the ones that I really love, it's not up there.
Yeah.
Goodfellas. It's not like in my top 5 of his.
No.
So, but I still think it's a great movie, and I think Casino probably people think it's probably a bit long. It doesn't necessarily have the pacing's not as good necessarily as Goodfellas is. But I still think it's a great film, and I'd say on par with it. And you could watch them, back to back. They're both extremely long films, but you could, wanted to, and that would work quite nicely.
Yeah.
Again, a lot of people when Casino came out said it is basically Goodfellas. It's too much like Goodfellas, which I can understand that criticism.
Yeah. Cool. Right. So just very quickly.
Yeah.
I think what Scorsese's doing for film still is amazing. He's been quite vocal about superhero films recently.
He has.
And
cinema in general, of this type of cinema not being really cinema. He's got a very interesting sort of theory on this, which I kind of am with him on, where we have to recognise that these are two separate things. The sort of films that he makes, which he calls cinema, and then the kind of superhero movies which are something else, which are designed in a different way for you to experience them in a different way.
They're made specifically to be blockbusters, which this is how I always look at it. I always look at, so going back to say the 90s, you've got something like Goodfellas, which made loads of money and almost became a blockbuster, or did, and then you've got something specifically made like Godzilla or Independence Day.
Yeah.
And
so what we're talking about is kind of like ride movies, stuff that are big spectacles. Because this is how he sort of described it, as being more like it's an experience, a different kind of experience where you're more akin to like being on a roller coaster, like being on a ride or something, where something's kind of like wow, big and bam and splash and whoa, and not really the sort of thoughtful, more like considerate sort of what he would consider to be sort of cinema, where it's more thoughtful storytelling, like the story's kind of like a side note to the spectacle. You
go for the building being blown up, or the giant lizards. And I don't think he's actually saying there's anything wrong with it. I think he's saying that there's just too much of it.
And he's also wanting to make the distinction between the two. That they are separate things. And I agree with him on that.
And another thing he sort of made the news with is the length of his films.
This is a good one.
And this is, I see both sides. I have nothing at all against a 3-4 hour movie. Nothing at all. My only criticism, I actually like a long film. You've got time to get to know the characters. My argument is so many people will sit at home and watch 5-6 episodes of Breaking Bad or whatever back to back. They don't seem to have a problem with that. I think people are using this excuse not to spend money and go to the cinema personally. But I wouldn't mind an interval in a long film. That's my only... Like they do with Bollywood movies.
I agree. I like the idea of intervals generally with films that are long. Don't have to get up to this one, which Killers of the Flower Moon, which is the new. I don't know if we mentioned the name of the new film.
I would have done in the intro.
Okay. But we hadn't. No. Is 3 hours and a half, as far as I'm aware.
It's 3 hours. It's 206 minutes. So 3 hours 26 minutes.
Yeah, but almost 3 and a half.
I bet you there's a good 10 minutes end credit.
Oh sure, but we, certainly. But something of this kind of length should have an interval. I think.
Well, I said last night I done the double. Last night when I record this, I went to the Halloween double bill at King Street.
You did.
Christine, which is just under 2 hours, and just over 2 hours. Exorcist. You had 10 minutes in the middle. Perfect to get another drink, but about an hour through The Exorcist, it was late. It started at 8:30. I was feeling a little bit drowsy. I'm not saying it's a boring film, because it's slow, but it works.
Absolutely.
5 stars I gave it.
5 stars.
But I could have done probably an hour and a half through, if I'm honest, because 2 hours 20 was it, something like that? With another coffee. Because you need, if you want a hot drink, or
this is what I'm saying. I think for a film even of Exorcist length, I'm saying roughly around 2.5 hours a movie, something like that length. That could do with an interval.
But I think sometimes you've got to look at the filmmaker's point of view. They might not want it because it's made to be this.
Sure.
It's not made to have a break. And did you ever watch a TV movie, like on video or DVD or whatever, and it's so obvious where there's meant to be adverts,
where there's the long fade to black, and then the black stays on screen for a while.
So I think personally, I think they should do it, but it's got to be done right. You can't just sort of stop.
Oh, absolutely.
Have you watched some of these free
Just
streaming
some
services
random-
now, where you timed adverts come on? It's like mid.
Yeah, they're talking. It's just
Yeah.
chat. It's like, okay, break.
Yeah, it's a buy
No
Pop
good.
Tarts.
Yeah. What?
Other products are available.
Yeah, but are they?
So yeah, I mean, I think, but I don't think it's not really down to him, but it's all come up because of the length of this film and the length of The Irishman.
Which, yes, again was that even longer?
I don't think
so.
it was. It's about the same.
About
I
the same
think.
sort of length. Yeah. I mean, so he's sort of has he been complaining a little bit? That's what I thought.
No, I mean,
read
I
something
don't know.
about people complaining.
I think. Well, no, he's not been complaining about the interval side. Yes, he's said about the length of the films. He has said much like I said earlier. People watch TV all night.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know how he's worded it, but I'm totally with him on that. And also, people nowadays are like, value for money.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan because I like B movies of an 80-minute
Me
film
too,
as long as
yeah,
it's well done.
yeah.
But when you're paying to be somewhere, you get your money's worth.
That
If it's good.
Yeah, but that's got its own problems as well, because what we're
There's less
saying
showings for cinemas to make less
certainly,
money.
but if we're just thinking about it from the film point of view, hopefully what you're paying for is the quality. And if
Yeah.
you're getting a great story, even if it's short, like say,
I mean, I know
80 minutes,
that, but I'm saying,
but then you're like, oh well, that
Yes.
was worth it. But you could watch a 3-hour movie and it could be a load of rubbish, and you're going to,
The Postman.
like The Postman, and you'd be like, could I please have my money back
Yeah.
and the time? Thank you
I
very
think
much.
also, if a film is bad and it's long, you notice more because you're bored.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly. I mean, people love a short movie for that very reason, that you can get out of it quicker.
Yeah, but with this, I say we're talking about Scorsese because I'm waiting to see the film. I'm going to go the Sunday night. You've got it on. When are you showing it?
We're showing it on the 10th and 12th to 12th of November.
Yeah. Very much looking forward to it, and I think Scorsese films, as proven with the ones I've seen on TV as a kid and then watching at your cinema, because I wasn't old enough when they first came out.
No.
Definitely better on the big screen.
Oh, certainly, of course, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so that's iconic director who's been around, 50 years?
Since the 60s.
So more than 50 years.
Yeah.
So now we're going to talk about a more recent director who's been around since the 90s. His debut was in 1992. Also from music video background. He done loads. But this is the trailer for David Fincher's new movie. It's The Killer.
Stick to your plan. Trust no one. Stick to the plan. Forbid empathy. Stick to the plan. Anticipate. Don't improvise. Stick to your plan. Never yield an advantage. Stick to the plan. Fight only the battle you're paid to fight. Ask yourself, what's in it for me? Stick to the plan. Empathy, weakness, and vulnerability. This is what it takes if you want to succeed. Simple.
That looks good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Have you seen the trailer?
I have seen the trailer. I have seen the trailer. I mean, it's so what we're talking. We're talking. It's called The Killer. So the name is the title sort of gives you pretty much what it is. It's not one of them deceiving titles where it's about people hanging around bus stops or something who catch trains. It's about a guy who is a killer.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And looks cool. First cinema release film for a while. I mean, select the cinemas. So
Yeah, it's going to be out on Netflix, but please come to the cinema and see it.
Well, I think it's cool to see it on the big screen, like we were saying with Scorsese. But also, it is selected cinema, so I don't know if many places locally will actually be showing it.
In Ipswich, probably not.
No, so one to see.
Yeah.
Great cast.
Michael Fassbender, he's great, isn't he?
He is. Tilda Swinton, but I don't think she'll be in much of it.
No.
She's sort of
I get a feeling it's a character study. You know, it's going to be almost exclusively Michael Fassbender on screen.
Who's a great actor.
He is a great actor. He's one of his age, certainly. You know, one of the up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is sort of a director's special. Both come from music videos. So mentioned before the trailer. I think just started with a lot of Rick Springfield videos.
Yeah.
To start with, and then
pop rock.
Yeah. Also done Michael Jackson, Aerosmith, Paula Abdul, Steve Winwood, Foreigner, Sting, a famous Madonna video, Patti Smith, Downtown Train.
Yeah.
Yeah. Loads.
The ones I remember, though, that I remember seeing were the Madonna ones, like Vogue and so. I remember Vogue, the video for that, like really well.
Yeah. So yeah, that was kind of iconic.
Yeah.
And they spoofed it in a Wayne's World sketch, so it's got to be good.
Yeah.
But before that, he was actually assistant cameraman on lots of films, including Return of the Jedi, Temple of Doom, and probably some more critically acclaimed artier films that I haven't seen.
I don't think so.
Really?
Well, maybe. I don't know. I think that he's a Hollywood guy.
Yeah.
He grew up in Hollywood.
Okay.
So was around it anyway, and I suppose from a young age wanted to be involved in it, and at a young age started. I mean, when he was doing, as assistant work and working on movies, he was barely 20 years old. I was going
to say, because Jedi would have been 10 years before his feature debut in 1992.
Yeah, so he was probably about 20 years old when he worked on that.
Yeah. And when he done his feature debut, which was Alien 3.
Yes.
Which he was
director for hire.
This was. Did he not come in to save or try to save it?
Yes. So I think there'd been at least one director beforehand.
Yeah, and he has or tried to take his name off it.
Yeah, believe so. Don't know why, because it's not a bad film.
It's certainly it's not as good as the first two, but it's not as bad as
no, of course not. But it's a film that I have brought up on occasion in the past with people, that it's one of those films that saddens me in a way, because the first half is great. I think the first half is fantastic, made really well. It works really nicely at building the tension, getting to know the characters. You have a fantastic cast. It has the best cast than any other Alien film that probably has been and will ever be.
Pete Postlethwaite's in it.
Pete Postlethwaite is in it. Charles Dance is in it.
Yes, yeah.
Ralph Brown is in it.
Yeah.
Brian Glover is in it. I mean, this is a fantastic British cast.
Yeah.
Right?
Am I not mistaken? The first two were filmed over here as well.
They were, yeah.
Yeah, but this one has that real Brit feel.
Yeah, and they're great in it. They're not like just whatever. We're in a silly sci-fi horror film. They're really going for it. And I think, like I say, the first half of the film is fantastic, and then the second half is just, oh dear, what happened there?
I'll be honest, I can't remember much of it. But it's actually older than I thought as well. The fact it's over 30 years old.
Yeah.
But that disheartened him. He made that, and then it was a few years. I think it was you telling me that.
He was saying. I think I heard that he was just not going to want to make any more feature films.
Yeah.
I'm just not going to do that again. And then, so people were handing him scripts and stuff. This is a thing that happens when you're in that kind of position. You get given stuff. Hey, look at this, and he was not bothered by anything. And then Seven came along, and he was just like, "Wow, I got to do this."
But the fact he was still getting thrown scripts his way is great.
Yeah.
When you look at, say, like the director of Howard the Duck, this film we always mention, and the director of Master Universe, done very little, if anything, after two movies that were big.
Yeah.
I
think because of his music videos that he'd made, and the fact that Alien, even though it wasn't a success, I think people would have seen the potential in him,
and the fact that the Hollywood insiders would know the story behind that film and why he came in.
I do think that his history of just working in the industry already, but just not as a director of films, would have certainly had he would have had enough clout that people who were wanting to get their work out there. You know,
Yeah.
that stuff would have definitely come his way.
Okay,
You know.
cool. And then the Seven,
Yeah.
which was huge.
Yeah, I mean, Seven is ridiculous movie in a way, because it's a film that you think, where did this come from?
Yeah.
You know, it's a low key film, and it's a film that you could almost, like, when you hear it, you think, oh, whatever, that just sounds like a load of schlock, and, you know, like any other sort of silly thriller.
Yeah.
But it is amazing. Like, it truly is just such a well put together film, and brought I wouldn't say a completely, like a unique look necessarily, but a style that was on its way in. And this is the film that really pushed it, which was, you know, dark,
Yeah.
dingy. The world is an awful, horrible place, you know,
Yeah.
and it's tough, like really tough living in a world, and it's in this kind of world, and it's not a fake world, it's not a dystopian world, it's not a future world, it's now.
Yeah.
But it's awful.
And casting wise as well, you've got Morgan Freeman, who a few years after Shawshank, which, you know, critically done amazingly, and but he's a character actor. You know,
Yeah.
he'd been like Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, Driving Miss Daisy,
Yeah.
never the main one, and it's sort of, he gave the film credibility.
Oh, yeah.
And it also proved that Brad Pitt was more than just a pretty face.
Sure.
It was one of the first
Yeah,
starring roles for him. You
Yeah.
know, he'd been in things.
yeah. He'd done a couple of like.
Yeah, he was on his way up, and this escalated that.
He was on his way up as a supporting actor.
Yeah.
Certainly, he'd done some indie leads, but I think he wasn't seen yet. He was just seen as a pretty face ultimately.
Yeah.
And with Thelma and Louise a few years previous is where people go, oh, hang on, there's something there with him.
Yeah.
But this is the one this is
In
95.
California as well, a few years back.
That was in 93, but that was a film that was not looked upon in any favourable.
No, but it was kind of
favourable-
everywhere, but it didn't do very
Yeah,
bad
yeah,
reviews.
and it's not a great.
I think that got a bit of a around that time. People were looking back on it because David Duchovny was in it.
Yeah.
Who was, X-Files got massive.
And it's
So-
Jennifer Lewis.
yeah, around that sort of Tarantino era.
Yeah.
I always saw that as one of those Tarantino wannabe movies.
It kind of is.
Yeah.
It's not very. Yeah, it's not very good. It's just not
No.
well written.
No,
I don't think.
but that was he was starring in that.
Yeah,
really.
he was. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but this was the first to do really well and critically do really well.
Absolutely, but it comes out in '95. There's another one he has in '95, which he gets nominated for an Oscar for, which is 12 Monkeys,
Of course, yeah.
which I think was a very successful film.
To be fair, I think that Monty Python aside, probably Terry Gilliam or one of his few hits.
Yeah, absolutely. yeah.
And,
It's true.
It's
yeah.
a great film.
So he had that in the same year.
Yeah.
So that year '95 is his year. Really, is Pitt's year.
And and it basically escalated Fincher's career as well.
Well, this is
And,
it. I mean,
and-
it's a massive film. It's critically seen huge. I think loads of people go out to see it as well.
Yeah.
And
the next movie, The Game,
yeah,
which I vaguely remember. I've got it in my head confused with The Fan.
right, yeah. It's nothing.
Is
there's
The Game
nothing
Michael
like that.
Douglas?
It's Michael Douglas, Sean Penn. It's not, in my opinion, not a movie I like very much. In all honesty,
That felt very Hollywood. No,
Yeah.
But his next movie after that, back with Brad Pitt, Fight Club.
Yeah.
Which is a movie. When it came out, I was kind of put off it. I thought it was just like going to be one of these just punching people in the face type of films, and it's so much different to that.
It is very much different to that. I am going to be very controversial. I was at the time and still continue to be so, and say that I do not like the film. People were like, "What?" when it came out, because everybody loved this.
Yeah,
movie.
this is it. I went in because everyone loved it. I went in not wanting to like it.
Yeah. No,
I
I was thinking I was going to love it, and I was just like, "Oh no, I don't like this. I don't like this at all. I think this is even then. How old would I have been? 18, something like that. Completely the perfect age for this kind of thing. This very, very, as I say, edgy film. Just no, it was. It was one of the first like real disappointments for me. I think, in that kind of sense, that I just thought it was too trying really hard to me. That's how it felt, like trying so hard to get its point across that it didn't need to be like that. It could have been so much subtler.
Yeah.
And I haven't read the book that it's based on, so maybe it is really in keeping with the feel of the book. But yeah,
do you not think it was sort of different, or do you think it was trying too hard to be different?
It reminded me of other things that were out at that time. Some of which I quite like The Matrix. It did make me think. When I think of those two films, I don't see them as being too dissimilar in a lot of ways. The feel of them, the attitude to them is pretty much
very
the same.
stylish as well.
Very stylish. Lots of music that's cool. You know, lots of quick, fast, sharp editing. I'm always very hit and miss when things are a bit meta as well. When they're a bit kind of, because there's a whole thing about the film being, the cinema is kind of plays in it.
Its time and kind of aged.
I haven't seen it since, so I have no idea what it looks like now. I would assume so, that it probably looks a bit dated.
And the performances, do you know? I mean, it's got Meatloaf in it.
Meatloaf's great in it.
Yeah.
He's probably my favourite thing in it. Actually, he is. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. Never was a massive Edward Norton fan. Never really been too big, but I appreciate the work, and I do see that they do it well. They play it well. I just wasn't into it. I just wasn't into the story. I find the conceit of it similar to the game. In fact, in that sense that when the reveal comes, that there's a big twist. It's like. Okay, fine.
Okay. And Panic Room was next.
Yeah.
Jodie Foster. Do you like that one?
Yeah, I like it a little more because it's just a bit more. I don't know, a bit more chilled of a film, even though it's quite intense.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting choice for
quite like Forrest Whitaker in it.
Yeah, and a young Kirsten Stewart.
A very young Kirsten Stewart, about 10 or something, 12 and that.
I remember making the hilarious joke at the time, the little boy in it's Kirsten Stewart.
Yes.
But, sorry.
That's fine. And Jodie Foster, of course, who's great. So, Jared Leto, not so much.
Nah. At the time, I was very interested in the fact that he'd come off this massive film, but became massive, and then done something low key.
Yes, it certainly is. It does feel like a step back, doesn't it?
Yeah,
which is interesting.
But it's what he wanted to do.
Yeah,
and I really like Panic Room. I've not seen it for a long time. I remember it being very tense.
Yeah,
acting brilliant.
Went to cinema to see that one as well, and remember feeling that tension.
Yeah, and. Yeah, the cast were great, and it's one I should really rewatch. But it's kind of forgotten there, I suppose. Yeah,
I mean, again, it's when I'll go back to 7 on this, just thinking of it from a story point of view. Someone explains the story. It is one of those films that you go, before you see it, you'll go, oh, that doesn't sound very good.
Yeah,
that sounds a bit like loads of other things, whatever.
Yeah,
and then but then it's got the Fincher look, and you go, oh, okay, so it's a very, very, very well made, very well crafted film.
Yeah. So it's cool. But I don't want to go through all.
No. Sure. So he's had hit after hit after hit, right? The guy's not really made a dud, has he?
I mean, and more recently, Gone Girl was huge. I haven't seen that. I know you haven't seen that. Yeah. Monk was certainly different, and that was.
That's a biopic, isn't it? About the guy who worked on wrote Citizen Kane.
Yeah. Very interesting film. Long, kind of slow, but it works. All shot in black and white.
Yeah.
And then I think it's the contrast from going from that to this, a thriller. His body of work is. I mean, Social Network I'd never have thought was him.
Yeah,
Benjamin Button.
Really? Did you not think?
No,
I mean, obviously quite different to the films that he's made.
I mean, it was obviously a big thing when it came out. It was
tone-wise very different, but I thought the feel of it's very Fincher, don't you think?
Yeah, I saw it when it came out, and whenever I look back on it, I see it as. Almost almost a rush job about getting a film out about this guy.
Yeah.
But I remember liking it, and
I quite liked it.
I thought the remake of Girl Jane Tattoo was pointless but well made.
I haven't seen it
because I love the original. I haven't seen Zodiac.
Zodiac, I thought was a little too long, but I thought overall because it's definitely a procedural. Police procedural type film. I thought quite well made.
I've heard really good things about that.
What's his name? Jake Gyllenhaal's great in it.
So. And he worked again with Brad Pitt on Benjamin Button.
I never saw that one. I know the story. I know the
Yeah.
Scott Fitzgerald short story, but
Yeah.
I don't. Yeah, I never saw the film.
I haven't seen it since it came out, and I'm pretty sure it was so long ago I saw it in the old Odeon.
yeah.
Fine film.
Yeah.
You know, it ticks the boxes. It does what it's supposed to. Well made, good performances. So he's another one who I don't think. I know you're not a fan of Fight Club, but I don't think he's made a dud.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
as far as my personal opinion is just my personal opinion.
Oh,
as
yeah.
far as like his, what they've done, his movies. I think they've all been successful, right? Apart from Alien 3, which I still think probably actually made money. I'm sure.
And it's gone on. They've done 2-3 films since.
Yeah.
So it didn't destroy a franchise. I think looking back, it's looked on harshly, as we say, but also his involvement's looked on harshly because it could have been so much worse if he didn't get involved. For all we know, indeed. And I reckon that the bits that I do really like are what he made. Like I think the first half of the film, I'm sure that's him. Yeah.
Because the second half does not feel like him at all.
Yeah.
It does. It just feels like someone who's just quickly putting together a not very good action monster movie.
Yeah.
And it's a real shame because, like I say, the first half, in my opinion, is fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, he's credited to it, but obviously the film wasn't shot in order.
No.
So it'd be interesting to find out who the other director was.
Or directors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think that was you look at that, it's been a while since Alien 2. They just want to get a film out.
I think, I might be completely wrong here, but I think it's Walter Hill who produced all of the Alien, who's produced all the old Alien films. Because I know that him and his partner, producing partner at the time, were very much hands-on on how the films looked and felt and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm certain, and that's probably why directors left, because they just had no control over what the producers wanted. So I'm pretty sure it's probably just Walter Hill himself, who was a director. And is not a bad director either, but I think Walter Hill's so
hit and miss.
Yeah, very much so.
When you look at his movies, it's like he's done some great ones, but he's done some, in my opinion, stinkers as well.
Yeah. I might be completely making that up. I do know Walter Hill was involved. Like I said, I know that they were very much involved in the process as producers in how the films were going to.
Were they involved in the ones after as well?
I don't know, but certainly 1, 2, and 3. But after that, I don't think so.
So it could have been, and then
yeah.
Next time I see him, I'll ask him.
Yeah, you should do.
But he's another interesting one who I think he's made some stinkers. But if I see his name on a film, I'll watch it.
Yeah, you'll go, I'll check that out, because he, did Warriors, which is fantastic, and 48 Hours is fantastic.
Is it Streets of Fire?
Streets of Fire.
Is it called Streets of Fire?
That sounds good.
The one, I don't know if it's called that. It's the one with all like Jim Steinman music and stuff.
I haven't seen that one.
I might be wrong. I might just.
I don't know. You're probably right. He's made a load of film. What was it? The Driver, which we put on at King Street.
Oh yeah. Maybe yes. So he's done loads, but he's Bullet in the Head with Stallone.
Bullet in the Head. Yeah, that's a great one.
Is it? No. That was a weird one because Stallone was on a bit of a comeback again.
Yeah.
And then he done that, and it was like, oh dear.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Now he should have worked with Fincher. That's a combination I want to see. David Fincher film with Stallone as the lead.
Yeah. Old man Stallone, what we get now.
Yeah. We can't time travel, can we?
No. Well, we have with effects nowadays.
Oh, well, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe they could just CGI or whatever, AI up a young Stallone.
Yeah.
An Italian stallion.
So 1984's Streets of Fire. It does exist.
There we go.
Diane Lane is in it.
Oh, brilliant!
That's the one where Rick Moranis is in it, and it's kind
no
of
way.
Actually,
fantastic.
It's cool. But get back to Fincher.
Yeah, Fincher, man.
When is this movie being shown? Because we've got.
All right, so we've got 17th to the 23rd of November.
So that's towards the end of the month.
Yeah, in the second half of the month.
Yeah, so it's well worth seeing.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
the trailer looks great, and
it does. It does look good. It looks like intriguing, and nice to see Michael Fassbender in it again.
Yeah,
and in a leading role.
Yeah, and it could. I don't know. His career hasn't really. He just doesn't seem to have done so much lately.
No, he's kind of definitely calmed down. I think because there was a time where he felt like he was in everything. You know, one of these kind of guys that's like.
He was in Frank, wasn't he?
I wanted to mention Frank.
Yeah.
There's something that I was thinking of earlier before I came here was that just thinking of Michael Fassbender obviously being the lead in other films that he'd done. And when I try to think, like, what do I love him in? It's Frank.
Yeah.
It is Frank. I love that. I do love that film. It is one of those odd films that I thought, oh, you're not going to like this because it's kind of about a fake version of Frank Sidebottom, who is one of my absolute heroes. So it's like, oh no, they're going to really mess it up and it's going to be awful.
It wasn't, was it?
It wasn't. It was so
Really
good.
good.
It was so good.
Yeah, that's if you haven't seen that, so yeah, did you guys show that when it came out?
I would, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
it was a long
that was
time
one-
ago now, though.
I
wasn't
didn't
it?
see it at the cinema. I think that was before I was in Ipswich. I wasn't
Yeah.
going to go to see
No,
it
we
every day.
definitely did. I did. Yeah.
It was one that it came out on Blu-ray. I just bought it. I was like, I'm going to like this, and I did.
Yeah. Oh no, it's so. It's a wonderful film. Yeah, I love it. Love it.
So yeah, I would just to have a quick mention of anything else. I would say I actually think Kirsten Stewart's a good actor, and I made a bad joke there.
Yeah.
She had short hair, and when I very first saw it,
Yeah.
I thought, is it a boy? That's it. That's all.
Well,
all I'm saying.
that's nothing wrong with that. I mean, it's
Very underrated actor.
Agreed. I think she, two Twilight actors who gone on to do much better things.
Yeah.
And
for what it was, Twilight was alright.
Never seen it.
I'm not the audience.
Do you know
You're not
what?
the audience.
Do you know,
but it's-
I've never seen it, so I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I'm pretty sure that what they've done since is probably a lot better.
I like that, yeah.
Just in the sense that Twilight is not meant to be like hard work.
It's meant to be fluff,
It's meant to be fluff, and so that's what I assumed.
The
and they've
Lighthouse.
both gone on and done great work.
The Lighthouse.
Yeah, absolutely.
And Spencer.
Yes.
Crimes of the Future.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
The
cool.
proper, these are proper actors. They weren't just silly, ooh, don't we look nice and pretty people.
They're DiCaprio's, not
Absolutely.
Slater's.
Oh, that's a bit unfair.
Nah, I like Slater. He's cool. He's my favourite Will Scarlett ever.
Your favourite Jack Nicholson ripoff ever.
Yeah. So, what else coming up? There's going to be a second part to the podcast this month where I'm going to speak with Dan about Alien and 2001. We're going to do a little sci-fi.
Yeah. We're showing those.
Yeah, and you're showing Blade Runner, but if you go back
Yeah.
through the episodes, a year or so ago, we recorded an episode on Blade Runner.
Yeah, we've done it.
So some older stuff coming up.
Yeah.
There's a film I'm interested in watching called Pressure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So
The Horace Ovey film. I mean, we should just do another thing on that, really. And
Yeah.
we should do another podcast to talk about sort of, British black cinema, really, because this is the beginning of it.
yeah,
So,
1975.
Yeah, Pressure is a fantastic movie, just seriously sublime.
Yeah.
So,
I'm also very interested in seeing Foe.
yeah,
Based on sci-fi novel. It's the same director as Lion, which my parents were raving about. I've never seen Lion.
yeah. We put online.
Yeah.
It's a fine film,
Yeah.
Yeah,
It is
decent
a
enough.
good Foe looks cool.
Yeah, we've got that's next week.
Next week, so
Yeah.
this will probably just come out and then that'll be
Yeah.
on. So lots of different stuff coming up.
Yeah.
And one thing I was just looking on the website last night. What is this Murder She Wrote thing you've got?
To be perfectly honest, I'm not too sure, and that's not for when's that?
That's next year.
Yeah,
That's what
February, I believe.
Yeah, we can find out until
find out
November.
a little closer to the date, but yeah.
So I think leading up to that, you should show like Bed Knobs and Broomsticks.
That's really interesting, isn't it? Because you're thinking Murder She Wrote, and it's an 18 though. I'm sure it's an 18.
It's a solve-along, isn't it?
Yeah, so there's probably going to be blood and stuff in it, and it's going to be a bit gory.
So some of they thought that it was they show an episode and you try to guess it. That can't be what it is.
No, surely not.
No. But that looks interesting. So we'll look it up in another future episodes. We'll talk about it.
Closer to the time.
Yeah. So I'd like to say I really enjoyed last month's sort of Halloween season.
It's nice, isn't it?
It's good. Chainsaw Massacre on the big screen was intense.
Yeah. And I cranked up the volume as well to make sure that you got it even fuller.
Thank you very much. So that's sort of the end of our director's kind of special November edition. Just anything else coming up you want to mention? Sort of briefly covered things.
No, I think that's probably about it, really.
But do keep checking the website.
Absolutely,
things come up. And get yourself members, save some money as well, which
indeed
is a good thing.
Yeah, helps the cinema overall as well. It's nice to have people sort of committed to the cinema in a way, if you see what I mean. So
all's cool.
Become regular and feel part of the whole King Street family, as it were.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. So on the socials, Instagram, Facebook, and if you become a member, there's a special access Instagram as well, isn't there? For members of the... You're sort of nodding it. Yeah, I know this. Yeah, there is. And there'll be another episode soon, as I say, on Alien. And 2001, that should be interesting. I still can't get into 2001. I've got to see it in cinema, haven't I?
You should. I mean, we put it on before, so why didn't you go that time round? But now you've got another opportunity.
I was probably watching Clifford or something like
that. They were working, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But another opportunity.
Yeah, so we'll see you later in the month.